Hey everyone, it's me, Alyssa. I also go by Lyss or Alsira, whichever's okay. If you see me staring down here, that is because I have my phone, so I'm reading off the script. We will be continuing the series of digging into my own poems for my collection DETHROEZ. I am a writer, and for the past few years, I have self-published 2 poetry books, Kaleidoscope and DETHROEZ. For Kaleidoscope, I did individual readings for each poem, eventually making a video analyzing all of the poems. It was 22 poems, so a pretty hefty video. For DETHROEZ, I decided to break them up into the series because we have a lot more poems than Kaleidoscope has. Less heavy on me and on my iPad. Additionally, for DETHROEZ, I also did singles, where I released a few poetry readings to get the era started. The DETHROEZ series is its own playlist on my channel. It will be attached in the description down below. So this is a part 3 of the DETHROEZ poem analyses. Let's get started. A few disclaimers. Ideas and opinions expressed in these poems do not reflect my own. The speaker is not the poet, unless otherwise stated. Some of the poems discussed in this video will have topics that may be triggering. Those topics will be on the screen right here. I have a bachelor's in English and a master's in creative writing. That does not make me an expert on literature or the copywriting at all. With that being said, let's get on with the video. Dark Arts 1. Now I know what you're thinking of. Alyssa, a series? What's going on? I'll get into that later. Dark Arts 1 is a villanelle, one of my favorite poetic forms. This villanelle stemmed from a song that was playing around in my head. Often, poems either start out as song snippets or just a stanza. The line, "Be still my heart," was definitely the first line that stuck with me for a while, and it did take long for the rest of the poem to come along. When it comes to rhyming, things can get awkward, they can get long. One of the things I was told when writing poetry is never use a song to help. This was told by my professor when I was taking a poetry craft course. What it meant was that when you use a song to assist, yes, it can be relaxing, but it also can be distracting. You end up writing another song to that melody. So when you end up reading it out loud, you start to sing along with it. That's the explanation that I can remember. I mean, I graduated that school in 2022. So back to the poem. The idea came about asking why would my heart be still, following the A-B-A-A-B-A-A pattern. I ended up writing from the perspective of someone leaving behind a life of lies and enter a new world. I do have a few favorite lines from this, besides the "Be still my heart." There's also "Struggling to think beneath a sky so blue," and the final stanza. This was like a change in tone and use in parallelism. Ash and mold, fury and gold. This demonstrates the feelings of our speaker and their determination to leave. This also paints the setting that they were in, and the setting inside themselves. The all in the art part, I don't know what to make of it. It rhymed. I think this line was inspired by Sylvia Plath or Emily Dickinson. One of them got a poem with the art of something. Reason why there's a Roman numeral? A few years ago, I read a poem called Dark Harbor 16 by Mark Strand. I don't know why I was thinking James Joyce, but whatever. There is a second Dark Arts in this collection. It's coming. Be patient. I don't know how many poems will be in the Dark Arts series, but they'll be spread out throughout the collections. And yes, I said collections. Subliminal Rage. An experimental one, to say the least. To have all stanzas leaning against the same margin, boring. Having 4 lines every 2 stanzas at the center margin, okay, I like it. And those 4 lines being a pontoon, hell yeah. Another favorite of mine. A pontoon is a poem of 4-line stanzas. where every second and fourth line alternates and become the first and third line of the next stanza. There's another pontoon in here, I think. I'm not sure. If you want a clearer example of a poem, of a pontoon, I recommend Atomic Pontoon by Peter Menke. That is one of my favorite poems. From the title, Subliminal Rage describes a tumultuous need to adapt under pressure and resisting the urge to release all that rage. We all know what that's like. The pontoon and the left margin stanzas are meant to read as like two variants of the same speaker, each giving off a similar yet dramatic tones of the piece. I'll focus on the pontoon last. Left margin stanzas first. Ambivalence! I definitely watched Girl Interrupted. Though I was a bit more abstract, you can gather a feeling of what's going on. Tectonic plates smashing against each other, oceans crashing into each other, volcanic eruptions, gravity growing stronger, drowning your own blood. And yeah, the pressure builds. As with most poems I write that are like this, I always feel the need to find a resolve. I just can't let the speaker die in this one. I mean, Rainbow was a bit different, and that was a sacrifice. This is a suicide under pressure. So we go from chaotic to revival. Kinda went some religious route with this one, not sure which, but I know a holy book talked about this. A lot of drowning metaphors, not uncommon in poetry. I mean, have you listened to metalcore and alt rock? And other genres? Pontoon! When it comes to rearranging lines, I have to use a table and numbers, and I hate numbers. Here it is. This whole thing. This whole table I had to use. It was so annoying, so boring. Well, not boring, but I remember almost breaking my head over this. It was a doozy. I think that's what made this poem so interesting, because we follow two voices of the same speaker, and it somehow comes to a resolve that involves revenge. And also, like, the techniques used in this poem, like, two poems smashed into one? Marionette. This was definitely a song for the most part, until it got longer. It still retains a portion of the song structure with the chorus, so to speak. It can feel annoying, but it breaks away from that format. There is a rhyming scheme, but it doesn't always stay consistent. You can see it from the lines here. To summarize, this poem is about having no sense of direction in life, so you can take on a new venture under the guise of a partnership. However, that partnership becomes one-sided, and you suddenly become a puppet that you barely recognize yourself, and now you have to cut the strings. Yes, I did reference Langston Hughes, and I will keep doing it until the day I die. The song that inspired this pattern of the poem was Belcara by Spirit Box. Also, there's construction outside, so that explains that background noise. And also, my AC is on to like low fan, so that's where you hear the humming from. The Impenetrable Wall. I can tell you the first stanza I wrote for this poem. It starts from "I'm tired of all this fighting" up until "or we'll die together before the sun comes up." Like Subliminal Rage and a few others in this collection, this one dealt with internal conflict. This was more on the lines of being another poem's sibling or cousin, and that poem will be next. Impenetrable Wall is a battle against yourself. You want to escape, but something is pulling you back. Or maybe you don't want to leave at all. Maybe you do want to suffer a little bit, because you feel like you haven't suffered enough. I write these kinds of poems not only for myself, but for others as well, so that they may read, think, and question why I wrote what I wrote, and if those words relate to them in some way, I am grateful for that. This is a poem of fighting with yourself, making yourself realize how much you're holding back by not allowing yourself to open up. The symbiosis must separate a favorite. I'm sure we can remember from biology what symbiosis is, but I'll offer a definition. Symbiosis is a relationship between two objects, some living, some non-living. Some are good, some aren't. You can go from birds picking off things from the back of a rhino to a parasite killing you from the inside. Make with that what you will. The end describes the speaker soaring like a bird, While his former self is burying itself in the sand, in the dirt, they've separated and let go of the past. It also ends in a similar way as the final poem of this collection. Hello there, I am filming this because I had forgotten to add certain stuff to my original script and the original recording, so this is me amending that. So the original title for the impenetrable wall was The Bull and the Impenetrable Wall. And you can imagine yourself being the bull trapped in this windowless room full of smoke, and you're trying to escape, and everything's like locked down. Now for the poem Sibling. Jester's Dilemma. A bit more structured. We have a few lines of a stanza, and then a single line. It's similar to the Impenetrable Wall, just with a different, more dramatic scenario. It's pretty clear from the jump that the speaker is being held hostage in a cellar, chained to a desk and keyboard, and just typing away. And the only way they can be freed is if they can produce a good novel. You're probably seeing a pattern or a shift in themes here. Back to the poem. The speaker is beating on themselves about not being a good enough writer and never feeling good enough about themselves. This stemmed from a personal struggle I have as a writer, that I have to constantly remind myself that perfection is not ideal. You cannot expect perfection from a first draft. I'm going to say this again. You cannot expect perfection from a first draft. It's fucking messy. A first draft is you telling the story, you starting from A and reaching to Z in any possible way. Writing stuff like this helps me greatly because it's a release, an outlet. Publishing this on a public platform, I'm reaching out to people who probably feel the same way that I do. I took some time with this poem because not everything comes out in one night. I didn't know how to free my speaker from the cellar, and then I look out my window and I see the trees. My trees, the trees in my backyard. Well, actually my parents, because they own the property, but... So yeah, I needed something to help end this poem, and Manzi was my answer. Manzi is the name of the first apple tree planted in our yard. She is named Manzi, short for manzana, which means apple in Spanish. She had a few good years, and that's important because including a fruit tree in this poem introduces a comparison and how progress isn't linear. Some days you fall, some days you succeed. It is not the end of the world. It is not the end of the world. Jester's Dilemma. I think this was almost called just The Jester, stemming off from like a tarot card, I believe. And this poem was also a take on the imposter syndrome, which is, I searched up imposter syndrome, so I'm not like giving out wrong information. Psychological experience that causes people to doubt their skills and successes. A persistent feeling of inadequacy and to believe that success is undeserved even when evidence suggests otherwise. I have self-published 2 poetry books already, and I'm still working on my debut novel and my 3rd poetry book. And still there are still other stuff that I haven't been able to achieve, and it makes me feel very insecure and like very underappreciated of myself. Like, not being able to find a job like more than a year after graduating from grad school. And going for like 10, 12 interviews and applying to like hundreds of jobs and not getting like a call back or anything. Getting an interview is like an achievement already. And then there's the whole thing about like being a writer, you have to write every single day, and part of me thinks that's just like bullshit because you can't, like, you have to take a break at one point. You can't just push yourself to write on the same project. It's gonna kill your mind. That's why I work on multiple projects, and when I have a new idea, I'll put it on my notes app. And this is a problem I see with a lot of writers nowadays and indie authors. And that's probably why a lot of people look down upon indie authors because we don't have like a traditional publishing house. We're not seen to the same standard as those who do have an agent or a publishing house representing them. But we still put in a lot of work into our own work. Like we are not, sloppy. I mean, we're all human beings. We make mistakes. Like, the amount of books I've read that have like little typos in it, and I'm just like, do I point this out or do I just shut the hell up about it? But that's just my feel about this thing. Those were another 5 poems analyzed in this video. All of these poems are in DETHROEZ, my newest poetry collection. You can buy this from Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also, there is my debut poetry book, Kaleidoscope. The covers were designed by yours truly. Every purchase counts. More poems will be coming soon, and depending how well the pattern goes, we should be done by December. I'll have more videos on other topics, and you're free to suggest one in the comments down below. If you'd like to chat more, there is a Discord server in my link tree. I also have affiliate links. You can also commission art via Ko-Fi. Hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to hydrate and be safe. Bye!